Does the idea of conflict or challenging conversations stress you out? Is there a crucial conversation that you have to have next week and that you're dreading? Don't get me wrong, no one loves these kind of conversations, but there is a certain level of confidence that comes with understanding how to have these conversations. So let's talk about it. Hey, it's Brittany, CEO and founder of Talented Teams Consulting, and I am back with today's video. Today we're talking about having difficult conversations in the workplace. And this is one of the most tricky things to navigate, especially when you're newer or if you're just really conflict avoidant. Whether it's involving performance issues or just delivering bad news of any kind, these kind of conversations are inevitable when you work in HR. And when you're working by yourself in HR, it's even that much more inevitable. Today, we're going to go step by step on handling these conversations so that you can navigate these conversations professionally and with ease. If you don't already have your pen and paper, go and grab that now. And if you like conversations like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications so that you get notified anytime we go live. First things first, you want to make sure you are going into these conversations and you are prepared. If you can help it, you don't want to get caught off guard. So reflect on things about like your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? What's the purpose of this meeting? Are you calling this meeting? Is the manager calling this meeting? Is the employee calling this meeting? Get super clear on what you're trying to accomplish so you can anticipate any questions or concerns from others in the room. Being prepared in this way is going to help you to feel more confident, and it's going to help you to feel like you're in more control. In a prior video, I talked about being able to control what you can control, and this is one of those things. So again, we can't control how the conversation is going to go. We can't control how someone's going to take the things that you say, but you can control the way you prepare for that conversation. So when we're talking about being intentional about all the things that you do, this is just one more instance of where being intentional and understanding clearly what you're trying to do and why is going to benefit you in the long run. Next thing you want to do when having a difficult conversation is making sure you choose the right location. Now, depending on the topic that's involved, you want to make sure the conversation is in a neutral place, a private place that's free from wandering eyes and people walking by. For example, if your office has a window or the boardroom has a window, you want to make sure you're considering that. If the person on the other end is likely going to cry or something of that nature, you don't want people to walk by and see that person crying. You want to make sure that you're in as much of a private conversation as you can, a neutral setting if possible, because doing this is going to create a safe environment for that person. You never want anyone to feel like there's a power imbalance. For example, if you're in your office, you're likely going to sit behind your desk. But think about it. If someone is sitting across from your desk, that's really a power dynamic that's different. So depending on the level of the conversation, the nature of the conversation, it might benefit you to come from behind your desk, sit side by side with that person so you can have more of a neutral meeting of the minds. The goal of this consideration is you really want the other person to understand that you have their best interest in mind. You're not trying to put them in an uncomfortable position or a power dynamic in which they're going to feel bad. And also remember, if you fail to take care of this step, you can add unnecessary drama and tension to an already otherwise challenging conversation. So you prepare for the conversation, you make sure you have the right location. When you start the conversation, you really want to start with empathy. Let that person know that you're there for their best interest. You're not there to scold them. You're not there to talk down on them. You're there to talk to them from a place of humanity. Acknowledge their feelings and build rapport with them. And this is one of the reasons why when you're working alone in HR, you want to make sure that your only point of contact is not always a negative one. That's why in a prior video, when I talked about stay interviews, I talked about how I like to do HR follow-ups where you're talking to people outside of, the new hire conversation or the termination conversation or a disciplinary action conversation, but you're checking in with them to see how they're doing, to see what feedback they have and things of that nature. So again, when you're talking to these people in these kind of situations, it's going to be tense. And if all they know from you is that you're the one that comes to let down the hammer on them and to get onto them, it's going to be a tense situation. So again, kind of going back to that preparation step, but even outside of this conversation, you've got to make sure that when you're talking to people and you're building rapport with people, that they can't see you as the Grim Reaper. You got to make connections with them outside of these situations. When you build rapport with them, it just really helps them to see that you do care where they're coming from and you understand. Even saying things like, I understand this might be difficult to hear, or I hate that you're having to deal with this. Those are things that kind of level the playing field to let them know that you're coming from a place of compassion and you're not there to just let the hammer down on them, like I said before. Depending on the topic of whatever you have to discuss, it could be very, very sensitive. It could be very, very difficult to hear from them and also difficult for you to say. So again, being compassionate is going to go a long way. It's going to help you to maintain that rapport that you built over time. Next, you want to make sure you're being clear and you're being concise. You don't want to be vague. This is not the time to be subjective even. You've got to make sure you're being as clear as you can. For example, say you're dealing with a person who is dealing with an issue where they're not being a great team player. Instead of saying, well, Jane, you're not being a great team player, say things that are more specific. Say, well, Jane, we have witnessed that, whenever the last time your supervisor had a meeting, you came in 5 minutes late, you rolled your eyes and you said, no one cares about this. So it's being as specific as possible is different than saying you're not being a team player. When you say you're not being a team player, that's very subjective. And there's a long list of things that can be seen as subjective, but everything that is subjective can be turned to objective. You got to get really crystal clear on what it is you're trying to say. When you clearly outline the problem, you give them examples and you give them clear expectations of what to do next, it's really going to help them to have things that they really can't argue with. Either that happened or it didn't happen. So it's really going to help you to level the playing field on the conversation as well to have a better and more fruitful conversation. Also consider the fact that the clarity around what you're saying is going to help the employee understand the gravity of the situation. For example, if the feedback they've been getting is all subjective and based on emotion and based on feeling, and you come in and you say, okay, well, these are the things that we've observed. These are the things that must change because of these reasons. It makes it that much easier to have a conversation that's going to be more productive. After you do all of that in terms of giving the employee that feedback and being clear and concise, you don't want to stop there. You want to give that person time to respond back to you. So you want to listen to them. You want to actively listen to them, and you want to validate their feelings and validate what they're saying. Give them an opportunity to explain their position. Maybe something has happened that you missed, or maybe something has gotten taken out of context or something like that. So you really have to understand that things are not one-sided. There's always three sides to any story. There's one side, there's the other side, and then there's somewhere in the middle, which is the truth. So you've got to give people an opportunity to speak their case, especially if you're bringing them in. You never want to bring someone in only to be spoken to. Bring them in for a conversation or not at all. Even if you don't agree with the employee, you can still actively listen to them, hear out their concerns, and just demonstrate trust and respect toward them as well. Once you said your piece and they said their piece as well, this next step is critical, because if not, it's going to undermine everything else that you've done. You want to work together to come up with a collaborative solution. If you don't do this, it makes it seem like you had your mind made up regardless of what that person said. Again, there are going to be case-by-case situations where you have to go ahead and have your mind made up. But for the most part, collaboration works best. Work with the person to help them develop a plan for improving. And don't put that onus all on you. Don't let it be, okay, well, I need to come in 45 minutes earlier every day to get you the support you need. No, let that person know, what are you going to do differently? What do you need from me? How can I support you? What resources can I provide? You want to offer resources and support and give them clear expectations about what the next step is going to be. What's going to happen if the behavior does not change? What's going to happen if the behavior does change? Make sure that no one leaves that conversation without being crystal clear on expectations moving forward and what's going to be the repercussions if something does not happen. Involving the employee in the conversation and the collaboration is going to get more buy-in, and you'll get more satisfaction from that employee and more commitment as well. So that's your step-by-step guide for having difficult conversations. And it doesn't really matter what the conversation is. It could be a performance issue, a behavior issue, an interpersonal issue, a management issue. It really doesn't matter. These steps are going to keep you consistent, but it's also going to help every employee to have a similar experience with you as well. Following these steps, you're going to make sure you are equipped and you're going to have the confidence to handle these conversations as professionally as possible. If you found this video helpful, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more videos just like this. I'll talk with you on the next one. Bye.